Yes. It's after 7:30, so let's go.
Yes. Okay. Good evening and welcome to the February 18th meeting of the Zoning Board of Appeals. For all present, let's spend a few minutes reviewing how this meeting will be conducted. For the first 2 hours prior to 9:30 p.m., we shall hold a public hearing on the applications that you have received a notice on and that were listed in the Norwalk hour for hearing. After the application is announced by the chair and read by the secretary, the applicant will come forward and identify themselves, state his or her name for the record, and then present the appeal or relief being sought. Please present those zoning issues that are relevant to the practical difficulties or hardship requiring this application. After you or your representative has spoken, those in favor will have the chance to be heard. After that segment, those against the application will have the opportunity to state their opposition for the record. In the case of an appeal, the zoning staff will have the opportunity to present their findings. Finally, after those against the application have spoken, the applicant and only the applicant will have the opportunity to rebut and respond to the issues raised. The hearing is then closed and the next application is called. New applications will not normally be heard after 9:30 p.m. as the board must discuss and act upon these applications. Please note that no further public input is accepted at that time. You are welcome to stay tuned for this portion of tonight's meeting, but should you decide to leave, you may contact the zoning office tomorrow to learn about our decision. Before we proceed tonight, I must remind you that this hearing is recorded and will become a matter of permanent public record. On that note, will the secretary read the first item being heard?
Could we get the roll call, please?
Oh, yes.
Thank you.
We have Andy Conroy. We have Keith Lyons. Greg Brasher and Chris, I always burn this name, Gravlites. Are those the board members present for tonight? Okay, at this point, we then shall proceed. Mr. Secretary, will you read the first item up for hearing tonight?
Okay, give me 1 second. I'll be right with you.
Okay.
It should be the continuation of the Highland Avenue item.
Yes.
Okay. 2101-2101, City of Norwalk. Variance of illumination restriction for athletic field lighting. Everybody can hear me okay?
Yes.
In a B residence zone, property located at 288 Highland Avenue, District 5, Block 81, Lot 156. Request. The applicant is seeking a variance of the regulation limiting the light level at the property line of an athletic field to 0.3 foot candles. Background, this athletic field is located at Brian McMahon High School. Proposed lighting is necessary for safety of the players. Analysis finding, it could be seen as a hardship that there is not an available alternate location for the field. That's it, Mr. Chairman.
Very good. Will the representative for the applicant please step forward?
Sure. So I'll sort of just take it from here. My name is Nick Roberts. Director of Recreation and Parks, City of Norwalk. I also have Vanessa Valadares from our engineering section of DPW, as well as Ken Hughes, and then Jeff Olowinski from Stantec, who's actually making the presentation. This is a continuance from last month's request for the variance at Brian McMahon High School for the softball field. I'll let Jeff go over it because there were a couple items that you requested at last month's meeting, and we have that information to present to you today.
Thank you.
Thank you, Nix. Do we have a presentation to bring up? I don't know if does the committee have that available to bring up? I believe it was sent in.
Yeah, but they don't have electronically, Jeff. Do you have it easy on your computer? Then you can share your screen.
Oh, yes, of course. Yes,
Yeah, I think it will be easier.
sure. My apologies. Bear with me 1 second. I will bring it up.
Amy, have
Just,
you opened it up to allow them to share?
I'm sorry?
Sorry, if you're going to show it, I'm not sure if she needs to allow you the ability to share.
Oh, right. Yeah, I believe I was set as a panelist. I don't know if that is,
Should be all set.
okay. Okay. Just as a background, a sort of a continuation from our last meeting, the existing softball field that's there right now, located on Highland Ave and on the southern portion of the parking lot, is a natural grass baseball field where the backstop is currently at the corner of the southern residential property in Highland Avenue. All the activity for the field currently falls, within that general area, and so in an effort to not only expand and enhance the usability of the field for softball and a half-size field hockey practice field, we were tasked with proposing to put lights on the field to expand the use of the field, both during the day as well as in the evening. We looked at a few options for the use of that. And I apologize, my server is taking a long time. I'm going to try another option to get this to you. And here we go. Okay. All right, so let me share. Let me share my screen. Okay. And let me know if you can all see the plan that is up there now.
Yes.
Okay, so the current configuration of the field has the backstop here. We explored the option of just simply replacing the field in kind with a small expansion of the artificial turf to allow for an additional half-size field. But in evaluating the field, we looked at sort of not only the lighting component, but the noise component, and having that in this general proximity. And then, of course, the lights right along the property line in this layout didn't seem like the most viable option. So we looked at flip-flopping the orientation, putting the most of the activity back in here, keeping it away from the neighbors, and then modifying the lighting layout to these corners rather than immediately across the property line. Our hope was to achieve the minimum 0.3 requirement, but understanding the need for safety of the players and the light levels required for that, it was not achievable. So per our last meeting, it was requested by Mr. Levy, I believe, and had asked for some examples, some both photos as well as a rendered simulation of what potentially the lighting would look like on a field in this orientation. So scrolling through, what we did is we took the light levels, and again, I want to preface this by saying that this is a photo rendering, and there is we did to our best ability try to correlate the lighting levels that were shown in the Musco proposal on this slide to get them to match in terms of what the the light spill would be based on these lights for the athletic field. So you can see obviously there is a minimal amount of light bleeding, but there is light bleeding back off the backside. It's given the height and the type of lighting, it's nearly impossible to get a full strict line to cut them off. But we also wanted to include some photo examples of similar type of facilities where you can see here, this is similar softball fields, similar size, similar scope, and similar lighting configurations, one in the center, two on the sides, each side. But you can see, maybe 10 feet back behind the dugout, it's virtually, dark. And we have Mike Mahoney here from Musco, and he can provide some sort of better realistic comparisons in terms of what that light level would really be. I can throw out numbers of 0.3, 0.4, 1.0, but understanding it in terms of everyday lighting configurations, understanding what those light levels are, might be better in helping understand what we're proposing. And the technology has advanced so much that you can clearly see in this picture the lighting levels that are right here, but you can hardly see immediately behind anything that's back beyond these dugouts and over here, even the backstop with existing trees. And right here, this is a parking lot where there's a light probably no more than maybe 20 feet away, and you can see the lighting levels that fall within this area, but certainly ample enough for play. Mike, I didn't know if you wanted to jump in and just sort of go over some of these images further, or some light comparisons.
Well, what I would just want to draw attention to is if you're looking at the light sources themselves, so the fixtures at the top of the poles, you'll notice in the top left example, especially, there's a pole located in dead center field. And so if you think of that, if you're a catcher or a batter or an umpire, historically you could never place a light there because you would be, it's a glare zone. It would be next to impossible to avoid the glare of the light source. However, with today's LED technology, full cutoff fixtures, anybody in the infield still cannot even see if those the lights in dead center field are even on, unless due to atmospheric conditions you can see the particulate, etc. But that's probably the biggest difference, is the elimination of the view of the light source once you get a certain distance away from that. And that's why we use the height controls that we do to get the angles to, again, eliminate the view of that light source and really attempt as best we can to create a curtain of darkness around the field and really frame that field with light to dark. Some examples when we're talking about foot candle levels, some common light levels. If you're in a working space where visual tasks are performed, you're looking at anywhere from 10 to 20 foot candles. A lunch or a break room, 15 foot candles. The high school gym, 50 foot candles. A gas station, you're looking around 12 foot candles. So once you get a little bit, like Jeff said, 15, 20, 30 feet away from the edge of this field, you could not undertake any of those tasks adequately. You're just not going to have enough light out there. It's basically pathway lighting at best. Back to you, Jeff.
Oh, okay. Yeah, so what we wanted to do is in response to Mr. Levy's comment last time was actually show some of those images and you know, we completely agree that it is important to show realistic images to allow everyone on to you know, review and make a decision, ask questions about how these work and show real life examples of what is the technology now versus what it was, you know, even 5 to 6 years ago. It has changed quite a bit. And this is the style of lighting with this kind of cutoff, with this kind of, you know, curtain, as Mike said, between the field and, you know, within 10, 15 feet of the light poles themselves. And that cutoff and that non-visual of the fixture itself. So with that, I guess I'll open it up. Are there any questions about this, the field, the layout, any additional items?
Well, in going through the submission for this meeting, you've made it considerably clearer than it was last month. The one thing I'm still not sure I'm seeing is what the actual fixtures look like.
Okay, I probably have a sample of them. Let me, if you bear with me 1 second, I will.
Please go ahead.
And if there are any other questions, I can multitask while I'm doing both. So if there are
Well,
any.
actually, I have a second question.
Okay.
Have you met with the adjoining residential property owners?
Personally, as a consultant, we have not. I'm not sure if the city has.
I can answer that. Good evening, Chairman. What we did is we sent a letter to all the adjacent properties to let them know that we're seeking variance and the reason for it. So all of them were informed, and then they have the option to come to this meeting, listen about the project, and then speak about it. Also, remember, this is just one step of two. First, we need to be granted a variance that we're going to be exceeding the lighting threshold on beyond the property level. And then we go again for a special permit for lighting the field.
So in other words, you've never reached out to the adjoining residential property owners?
No, we did, yes, by letter. We sent a certified
I
letter to everyone.
recognize you are under the legal obligation to do that, but you didn't go outside the normal bounds of responsibility to actually meet with them individually or as a group.
That's correct.
Okay, why not? Actually, I'm going to ask Tammy a question. Do we have anybody attending this meeting that is an adjoining property owner?
Not that I'm aware of. We didn't receive any you know, we were published in the paper, and as Vanessa said, all of the notices were sent.
Fine, then
Okay.
I'll drop my objection because obviously the neighbors don't care.
I had a question while you're looking for those samples. I think one of the things that Andy brought up last meeting was something around like the difference between the technology of the baseball field lights and these lights here. And I think that you guys had talked a little bit about, I don't know if the right term is a lot less bleed or something like that. Can you spend a moment just talking about how the light is, I don't know, more precise, more directed, less reflection to neighboring properties than what's out there today?
Mike, do you want to field that, being the technical expert on the light? Quickly. You're on mute, by the way. Mike? You're on mute.
Yeah, I got you. I was just
Sorry.
pulling up some examples. So if I am able to share my screen, I can show some examples of previous technology versus today's.
Mike, you should be able to if you click the share screen at the bottom.
Okay. Still nothing, huh? I'm hitting share screen.
Yeah, once you hit the share screen, you actually got to select the specific screen you're looking to share.
Oh.
Yeah, the dialog box should come up at the bottom.
You see that?
No,
Yeah, so hit share screen, a box should pop up, then double click on any of the little mini windows that are there, and that will tell you, there you go.
So a couple of examples. This is a previous HID light source before, and this is after. So pay particular attention to the light sources themselves. And see how prominent they are in that picture.
Mhm.
They virtually disappear there.
Right. Go back to the prior. Sorry, I just want to see it one more time.
There's the prior.
Okay.
And you can see in that picture, the house, how much it's lit up in the background under the old format and then the new format. I don't know if that's the same feel and the same exact orientation. Is it, Mike?
Yeah, absolutely.
I also want to follow up on something that Mr. Levy brought up, the usage of the lights. So right now, the school is the primary user of it. One of the things we're trying to do is provide an equitable access as far as Title IX and providing lights on the softball field, as the boys field has lights on theirs. But last year, the AD mentioned that there were three night games in total for the entire season that the boys played. The girls did not have any night games at all scheduled. I think in speaking to him, it didn't work out well last year. It's not something that's going to be a typical occurrence to have a night game unless it's impacted by weather. We have a number of other turf fields in the city with lights that are near to residential properties. We do have a curfew, or we have a time that we do cut them off, typically at 9 p.m. But outside of the summer season, we would probably run these until 8 o'clock in the winter, and that would be it. So you're not going to see these on at all hours of the night. There will be a time that we cut these off, so it's not impacting the neighbors, or it's minimal impact to the neighbors.
that's good to hear.
Sorry, go
Sorry,
ahead.
Greg, go ahead.
No, please, Chris.
I just have one question. How, because I grew up on the Nathan Hale field, how similar are these lights to Nathan Hale, or let's say Norwalk High? I'm assuming it's pretty similar, no?
No, what you see, even for instance, in this picture here, would be, this is a generation just before what we did at Nathan Hale, but it's still the HID light source. And you can see we took 4 poles down and again replaced it with just one. So the night sky, the minimizing that visual impact in your night sky, it's really very dramatic, the difference.
So you're saying there'd be less light for the neighbors to deal with?
Absolutely, yeah.
Okay.
Nick, I'm not sure if
Can
you're the right
can I
person.
jump in? This is Andy. I want to jump in here for a second.
Sure.
So currently, to make sure Chris understands this, there are no lights on the girls softball field. Is that right?
Correct.
There are lights on I would guess you would call it the main baseball field that the boys have been playing on. And lights are very tall and very, very bright. And I thought we don't really want to see that occur on the girls softball field. The reason being, the other field is somewhat secluded from all the neighbors. This field is right in your face. It's right on Highland, right next to a property, right next door to it. And then right across Highland, there's a bunch of houses stretched down Highland. So annoying neighbors would be a realistic issue that would come out of this if we don't have good control over the lighting and don't keep the lighting to reasonable hours. I'd like to hear more as we go on about the hours this could be restricted to. Thank you very much.
Landy, I think they stated the hours of operation during the summer would be up to 9 p.m.
I thought I read 10. Didn't you, Lee?
Yeah, there is 10 in one of the documents that were passed over. The one from Tammy, I believe.
And I was thinking 9, and I wanted to hear why it couldn't be 9.
Ken,
If I could make a point, at Nathan Hale, the house that's directly next to the lower soccer field is actually owned by my cousin. So I've been actually at his house when those lights are on, and he doesn't complain, and they're fine. I know each location is different, but it just gives me an idea of how bad those lights are. And they're not that bad at all, actually. So I have a little experience with being under those lights when they're lit up at the first house next to the field. But again, I understand that every location is different.
Ken, can you jump in as far as the hours of usage at Nathan Hale? Is it 9 or is it 10?
It's 9 p.m. My name is Ken, City of Norwalk, Superintendent of Parks and Public Property. It's been 9 o'clock. And one of the nice things about the Musco system is we have total control of when the lights are on, when they're off, who turned them on, and how long they have been used. We can actually set up through the controlling system for the lights to be off at 9 o'clock. So nobody has the authority to turn those lights on unless we override it in the system. So the Rec and Parks Department will have total control on when these lights are on and when they're off.
Got it. Nick, I think this is a question for you, but you brought up Title IX earlier. You talked about women's sports earlier. So I have 3 daughters, and so this seems to be like will be the only lit field at McMahon that's almost exclusive for female sports, right?
Correct, and it's actually will be the only turf lighted softball field in the city.
Right. Okay. So the girls today at any school, or I just say our Norwalk girls, don't have any other, like if there's an evening game or whatever and the sun goes down, they got to stop playing. There's no options for fields. Unlike soccer, football, etc., baseball, they all have lit fields somewhere in the city.
Correct. So we have to figure out some kind of solution so it doesn't result in a Title IX issue. So if we don't get the variance tonight, we would have to make accommodations for those girls if they wanted to play a night game at an alternative site in the city. So we would have to make that concession, yes.
And so if we don't do that, what exposure does the city have regarding not doing something like this?
It can open ourselves up to just a complete look at all of our facilities, everything from athletic fields to locker rooms to bathrooms, to every single thing that the boys have, the girls will have to have access to, and we would open ourselves up to some kind of evaluation like that. That's more of, it's more of a athletic and scholastic requirement as opposed to a public facility. I'm not totally knowledgeable about everything. Ken, you can jump in if there's anything that I've missed.
Well, what it would do, it would open up the city for a review under the Title IX guidelines, and they would look at not only the softball program, but every other program run through the schools at both high schools.
Right. Have you guys ever seen any experience of this in Connecticut at all, of it going awry like that? Or going
I haven't
sideways
personally
like
seen
that?
it, but I have heard stories from the ADs at both the high schools.
I've been here less.
And Greg, I just want to add one thing to your question. One of the reasons why this project got funded last year was exactly because of that. When we went for the public hearing for our capital budget, there were a lot of parents very vocal about the need of the girls to have a turf field, and that we were not meeting the Title IX for them.
Okay, got it. Thank you.
Any further questions from the board? Well, I hear no further questions or comments. Is there any member of the public online that wishes to ask a question or make a statement on this application?
Please raise your hand if you'd like to speak, and I can allow you to talk.
Well, hearing none, I will ask if the applicant has any further statement to make on this.
I do not. I think we've covered all of the points. And I thank you for your consideration.
Thank you, Nick. In that case, I shall close this portion of the public hearing. And Mr. Secretary, would you read the next item on our agenda?
Will do. Next up is 2102-1801, second Norwalk 490 LLC. Variance for setback, side yard 30 required, 4 feet proposed, aggregate side 30-foot required, 4 proposed, rear yard 10 required, 4.7 proposed, building area, buildings 50% maximum, 58.3 proposed, buildings and parking 80% maximum, 83.2 proposed, open space 20% minimum, 16.8 proposed, buffer strip 15.5 feet required, 4 foot proposed, for 2 outdoor paddle courts. In business number 2 zone, the property located at 490 Westport Avenue, District 5, Block 8, Lot 41. I presume everybody's hearing me just fine.
Yes.
Applicant seeks variance of regulations for setbacks, lot coverage, open space, and buffer strip to construct 2 paddle courts in the southern portion of the property. The background, the existing business is a membership fitness club. Excuse me. With indoor only space for tennis and other fitness activities. Although the existing structure has made good use of the parcel, the lot shape and existing building configuration could be considered a hardship for the addition of outdoor paddle courts. That was the analysis provided by our staff. That's it. Thank you.
Okay, will the applicant come forward and identify themselves?
Yeah, hold on one sec.
Okay.
I do have a letter from the chamber, which is variance application 490 Westport Avenue. Dear Mr. Kleppen, on behalf of the Greater Norwalk Chamber of Commerce, I am writing to provide support for the variance application of 490 Westport Avenue. Intensity Fitness. First, it is worth noting that this business site was established in Norwalk in the 1970s, making it well established in Norwalk and one with a strong and positive reputation. It is also a matter of merit that the activity of the business facilities promotes good health, fitness, and wellness, all desirable attributes for the residents of Norwalk. And there is certainly a high demand for the option of outdoor activities in these times, and will be going forward. It is worth noting many of Norwalkers are members and supporters of this business, and this will be one of the very few places in Norwalk to engage in outdoor paddleball. In regards to the requested variance and project itself, the applicant has made a concerted effort to balance the needs of its members and purpose of the project with those in surrounding areas. Considering all the positive benefits to come from this augmentation to a long surviving business here in Norwalk, we hope that the variance will be approved. Thank you for your consideration. Brian Griffin, President. That's it. All set.
Thank you, Mr. Secretary. Will the applicant come forward and identify yourself?
Yes, good evening. My name is Jackie Kaufman. I'm an attorney with Carmody, Torrance, Standack, and Hennessy in Stamford, Connecticut, and we represent the applicants tonight, who we have several of our team members here on the screen with us. Charlie Mason, who is the owner of Intensity Fitness. David Wright, who is representing the owner of the property, Sackett, but also known as Paragon. Jason Klein, my colleague. David Gagnon with Langen Engineering. And I believe that Chris Casaraghi, who is with the Platform Tennis Designer, he was going to join us. I can't tell if he is on based on the folks here on my screen. But thank you very much to you and your staff for getting us on your agenda tonight and to this point. I want to start by saying, Mr. Chairman, that we have gone above and beyond our notice requirements, and there are condos that are located to the west of this property. It is not an adjacent property, but beyond that, and we did notify them, and as a result of the weather today, we didn't have the opportunity to get together. They reached out to staff on Friday, and then we were able to be in touch earlier in the week. So we've had good conversations with them, although because it is a condo board and there are several interested parties, we weren't able to come to a resolution or provide all of the answers to each of the individual board members. So we did articulate to them that we would like to present tonight so that everyone could hear what the proposal is. We thought that was a good opportunity, and that we would be happy to meet with them at a date in the future, hopefully next week. They're represented by an attorney. His name is Attorney Polisi. I cannot tell if he is on tonight either, but we did. Oh, is he there? He's raising his hand. Is that? Oh no. Anyway, so we articulated to them that we are supportive of a continuation, if of course you are, so that we have a chance to meet with them. But we would like to go forward with the presentation for now.
Very good. Please proceed.
Thank you. So the property we're talking about, in fact, may we share the screen, please? My colleague Jason is going to manage the PowerPoint for us. And we provided this to you earlier. You may or may not have seen it, but I'd like to walk you through these slides because they are going to orient us to the site here. So 490 Westport Avenue, right in the heart of Route 1. You can see represented on the star there the property, and Jason is outlining it with his cursor. You can see it's a fairly oddly shaped building with interesting kind of corners, and the building was built under the light industrial standards. So it was built to almost maximized out to the property lines, as you can see. But also, Jason, can you point to the small grassy area in the back that we'll be talking about tonight? This is the area that we're proposing 2 paddle courts on, and the need for the variance arises from this odd shape that that has resulted in the back over the years that the property has been developed with this rather interestingly shaped building. But tonight, the few variances that we're requesting will be to allow 2 paddle courts that will run parallel to that building in that green grassy knoll there. But I'd like to spend a moment to just talk about this property before we go to the next slide. To the north of us is it was a gas station. It's now a car wash. And then to immediately, if you can put your cursor on that, Jason, thank you. And then immediately to, oh, I'm sorry, to the north, I meant to say to the east. Immediately to the west is a restaurant property. And then beyond that, we have a Goodyear tire property. And then beyond that, you can see it's a very tortured lot line, which looks, which Jason's fine. You can see it's very oddly shaped. It kind of comes down. You feel when you actually approach that property that it's all connected as the Goodyear tire property. There's another commercial building that's located there. That strip that is located that Jason is pointing on, as we'll see in a minute when we go to the zoning map, is critical to our discussion of our hardships today too, because that is in the B residence zone, and it is just a strip of property that is really inaccessible and undevelopable. But the remainder of that property, I'd say the functional part of the property, the flag lot there, is located in the B2 zone. All of the properties on both sides of this property are located in the B2 zone, except for that single strip. So let's advance now to our next. Here's a closer view of the property. You can see that it is developed with a large commercial building, built in 1974, and it has a large swath of trees in the back there, and developed about 54 parking spaces. The interior of the building is used for fitness uses and primarily racket sports. There are tennis courts inside, and it's been used as a tennis fitness facility since the 1970s. Here's a closer look at the B2 zoning map. Everything that you see in blue, our property has the star on it, and the properties I just described to you to the east and west, also in the B2 zone. This is important because the B2 zone does not have a requirement for side yard setbacks or aggregate side yard setbacks, nor are there any buffer requirements. However, where there is a border on a residential zone, you have that. And what's interesting again about that strip, Jason, if you can, everything in orange is a residential zone. You can see even primarily to the east and west we're blue, to the south we are blue. In fact, that is the Bed Bath & Beyond property that comes and movie theater property that comes out behind our property. But then again, we have that strip that's attached to the commercial property, and that's located in the residential zone. Why this happened, we don't know. We spent quite a bit of time trying to dig through the records to see if there were minutes or if it was intentional or if it was an oversight. Because it was not accessible, because it's so narrow there, it may have been an oversight or it may have been intentional, but in any event, it does provide a functional buffer that serves the spirit and intent of the regulations, and I think supports our hardship request, but also demonstrates that it won't have any adverse impact on the neighboring condos to the west, because it does provide this additional buffer. So let's advance to our next slide too and talk a little bit about what we're looking for. Here's a picture of the rear of the building. You can see it's been used for outdoor recreational purposes associated with this fitness use. And we have a few pieces of equipment. There are childcare services, and children come out here, have come out here in the past to play. They take good care of it. It's not easy to do. It often is a place where people hang out in the evening and do things they shouldn't be doing. It's often left littered and vandalized and graffitied. So having some activity here year round will certainly be a good thing. But Mr. Mason does a very good job at keeping it clean. Let's continue. So this gives you a little background of where we are. That chain link fence, it represents the property boundary between our green space and the Bed Bath & Beyond parking lot that I just identified. And you can see to the west beyond those trees, that's where the buffer is, where those trees are, that buffer strip. And then beyond that is the property line. I mean, the condominium, the residential condominium. Next slide, please. This is it's just further away. Now, standing in the back of the Bed Bath & Beyond parking lot, there is another residential community that is on the opposite side of those trees. So again, we have a nice buffer between, and this is still again in the B2 before we get to another residential zone. But it's also significant to know on the other side of those trees is actually a City of Norwalk pump station. Next slide, please. And this is just taken basically standing by that truck and looking to the rear of the building where the sports courts will be located. Next slide, please. These are two representative images of paddle courts. Mr. Mason can tell you a little bit more about the sport and about the need for the sport, but the membership here are very, racket enthusiasts. And paddleball, if you are not familiar with it, is a nice hybrid of tennis and squash. It's very, very popular in our communities. And there are not many places in Norwalk to play paddleball unless you're a member of a country club. I believe in Rowayton is the only spot Mr. Mason had shared with me that you can play paddleboard at a public court. So this would be a wonderful opportunity to, even though this is a membership-based club, it's very accessible, unlike a country club, which may be less accessible to all. And I should note that there are roughly 4,000 Norwalk members that belong to Intensity, and this has been a very desirable use by its membership over the years. But now that we are in COVID and people are hesitant to be inside, it certainly has diminished membership at the club, but also for members who remain, their ability to use it. From a health and wellness standpoint and a physical fitness standpoint, this would be an excellent addition, not only for the membership, but for the community. You see on the left-hand side, we have a court that's flush to the ground. That is not what is being built here. What we are building is a little bit more akin to what you see on the right. Although the elevation is not the same, it will be a raised paddle court. So although we do, today we'll be talking a little bit about building coverage, and this is a structure, this is something that is going to be on a few footings. It will be raised like a back patio, and it will be open on the top and actually on all four sides, but there will be mesh screening for safety. And it will be similar to this, lights that are similar to what you see. And we'll talk a little bit more to that in a moment because we have done a photometric study that will ensure that we don't offend our neighbors with the safety lighting that will illuminate the courts. Next slide, please. Here's the proposed court elevation. Not as easy to read off the screen, but you do have copies of this. And as I said, we can speak a little bit more to it if you are interested in these details. Next slide, please. Here's the court elevation from a east-west position. Next slide, please. And here's our site plan. So you can see the outline of the property and where the two courts will be located. But more importantly, I think easier to read will be the next slide, where we can speak to you a little bit about our variances up close. So the first variance we're requesting is the side yard. I'll go through the westerly side yard at 4 feet. But I would just like to point out to you again, you can see where our property line ends. It's the thick dash line. And then we have roughly 26, 27 feet across to the next property line. Again, nothing happens there other than woods. Nothing there will be disturbed. effectively to the next property where there is activity. That is where their swimming pool is located. So we think from the condo perspective, having the two outdoor recreational uses are compatible and won't offend one another, but that effectively is a 30-foot buffer. Why is that important? Because in the B2 zone, when you abut a residential property, even if nothing is happening there and it is really a commercial property for all intent purposes, you are required to have a 30-foot side yard setback. So functionally, we will maintain that setback in that location. Then we have the aggregate side yard where we are requesting 4 feet in lieu of 30 feet. Again, the aggregate side yard setback requirement is only triggered when you are next to a residential property. Again, this really is not a functional residential property, and I think can be ameliorated again because we functionally can maintain a 30-foot setback to the next active residential property. The buffer, it is a bit of the same. So when a B2 zone abuts a residential zone, you are required to have a 15.5-foot buffer between your uses. And we certainly maintain that. And there is a lush, thick tree line that will obviously be maintained there as well. We aren't touching that. I will note too that this westerly paddle court here, that is at the 4-foot line. Jason, if you just point to the westerly paddle court, that is 215 feet away from the closest residential dwelling. We're also requesting a variance of the rear yard setback, and that pinch point there, it's 4.7 in lieu of the 10 feet required. And we note here that the next closest residential dwelling is 75 feet away. And we are buffered here. We don't have the same requirements on the rear yard side because we have, again, about a 30-foot, 35-foot buffer. I call it a buffer. It's not really a buffer. It's B2. It is B2 property, and it's used as a retail parking lot. Then we're requesting 2 variances of the building area and the building and parking area, 58.3 in lieu of 50%, and 83.2% in lieu of 80%. Again, this is very challenging. We have a building that was built under light industrial standards and maximized its use once it was changed to the B2 zone. So we're challenged by both the history of the property, the chain. It's a hardship really beyond just being challenged, but that the zoning map changed, the zoning regulations changed, and therefore the entitlements to the property owner also changed. Because these courts, we're calling them building coverage, but again, they're not enclosed. They're open. They're for recreational purposes and function very much like a deck because of the way that they are raised. Very interestingly, they come in kits. They can be built very quickly. They don't have any impact to the surface of the earth behind it. And finally, in this zone, which was not the case when it was light industrial, there is an open space requirement of 20%, and we're requesting 16.8%. And again, we have this very interesting triangle in the back. The front of the property, because of the building size and because of the change in zone and the use, has a parking requirement. It's very, very much over parked. We can go through that if you'd like, but because the front is the way it's accessed and it's a strange shape, it doesn't really lend itself to other open space in the front. And we would argue that the spirit and intent of the open space regulation is still achieved by having outdoor recreational sports in the back. In fact, open space is really meant to be enjoyed, and right now it really isn't, except for the occasional time that the children's play group is out there. And in many ways, it will be more enjoyed and better maintained and under these circumstances than it will otherwise. So our hardships, just to review quickly, are our unique lot shape, our unique lot size. We do have a narrative we provided to you in detail supporting these hardships. The change of zone from light industrial which had been that way since the 1950s, and then was developed in this manner in the 70s. There was an auto dealership there. Prior to this, there was a fire in the building. The whole thing was scrapped and rebuilt in this manner in the 1970s. And then what I believe changed to B2. I couldn't find the actual map. It must have been the early to mid 80s. But really, it's very interesting, the development of the zoning map lines over time. That small tail is in the B zone, and that presents a very unique circumstance to this property that, if you went back to the zoning map, doesn't appear to the others. Jason, can we go back to the next? Can we go to the next slide, please? Are we able to zoom in on this? What you can see here, if you can get in a little bit closer, thank you so much. Where you see that square, it says something temporary working easement. That's basically where the courts are going. And you can see here we have 26.6 feet up to 29.4 feet before we reach our next active residential use. But it really puts extra constraints on this property, on the intensity property. It's totally unique to this property, because as when we looked at that zoning map, you'll see that this was the only, it was a wash of blue, and this piece is connected to a commercial property, and maybe should have been turned blue. And I can't tell you why that happened, but it certainly creates a unique hardship to this applicant. But also has provides, it is a good thing in the end too, because it provides a functional buffer. This will never be developed. It will never be developed for commercial purposes, and will serve the purpose of the zoning regulations, in that we will provide that 30-foot setback functionally. So there are those are things to think about in ways we're able to ameliorate any impact that the proposal may have on surrounding properties. If we can go to the next slide as well. Thank you. Actually, let's go to the next one first for me, Jay. Nope. This one. So this is a similar exhibit that we just had. We were just showing you the distance to the west, and this shows you the distance to the south. These measurements are taken across the Bed Bath & Beyond back parking area. Again, we have 27.4 feet, 28 feet, and then up to 60.7 feet. And again, that just shows that we have this additional distance that will contribute to functional setbacks to the nearest residential property lines, which I know are important. So now let's go back to our photometric plan, please, Jay. I know this is not a requirement of the Zoning Board of Appeals, and we are not requesting any variances associated with lighting, but we thought it would be important to the town and to our residential neighbors to know what's happening in the rear here. This paddle ball is a full year sport, which is great for those who participate in it. And the hours of the lighting and the operation will really vary by season, but winter being the latest that it's open. The hours of operation for the paddle courts will be consistent with the intensity other racket facilities that they have there. So that's Monday through Thursday until 10 p.m., Friday until 8 p.m., and Saturday and Sunday until 6 p.m. So in the evenings, when it is darker earlier, those lights will go on earlier. But they have been designed fully down gradient with shields around them. They are only designed to illuminate the courts and not spill out beyond that. In fact, I was looking for a statement from our lighting designer so that you could have that in writing from them today. And I know they were making some modifications to the lighting plan. Again, not important to you since it's not a site plan application, but important for us to share with you and our neighbors that we are sensitive to that and have designed it appropriately. However, they are in Texas and currently experiencing power outage, and we're not able to provide that to us tonight, but it is our commitment to create a lighting experience that is for this use only and will not offend others. I think we can continue now on to our next slides. This was in case we needed to come back and revisit what it looks like from the air. And what do we have next? Oh, we wanted you to see that this really was the minimum necessary to afford relief, which is another standard that by law we know you review. And we tried to see, are there other places we could put this? And there really are no good places for it. If you have driven through this property, then you'll know that you can't, we could not maintain the parking and also put these uses out front. They also didn't make sense given the activity that was located there, and our engineer can speak to it more if you have any more questions about this. But we felt that it was most appropriate to site them in the rear, and that the requested relief was really minimal. We created other new and pretty bad problems by putting it in the front. And again, the lot shape does not support it because now we have circulation issues, parking issues, and other safety issues given the surrounding uses. David, did I miss anything on that? Was there anything you wanted to add to the discussion of this exhibit?
I think that was perfect. I mean, the only other things I would add, kind of a unique feature of this lot is there's also an easement on the bottom triangle of the property. So we also looked at the opportunity of maybe putting a court over there, but
I think that's the next slide. Sure, yes, please.
Yeah, we were restricted in that area as well because there is an easement in favor of the city. There's some sewer lines and drainage lines there. So, you know, we weren't able to put in that location. And to your previous figure, I mean, we looked at in the front of the building, and it's really a unique shaped parking lot. So it had a significant impact on circulation, on safety. And also by putting those courts out front, we were no longer parking compliant. So this is the best we could come up with. And we thought it was a good solution. And one thing I did want to add is you saw in some of the photos, there was a chain link fence in the back. So on the southern and western property line, and we are proposing to replace that with an 8-foot high wooden fence to provide some additional screening from those residential properties.
Yes, and of course the attractive side of the fence will face outward. I did receive another call from a neighbor to the south who was quite pleased about the replacement of the chain link fence with a nice new wood fence.
Anything further?
No, right now, not from me. Oh, actually, yes, I do want to add one more thing. In our narrative, we do go on our last page through some examples of how this variance is consistent with the comprehensive zoning plan. You can see that up on your screen right now. Specifically, it facilitates safe physical fitness experiences during COVID. It will contribute to physical fitness in Norwalk beyond that as well. But there is a need for it right now. Contributes to the commercial longevity of a long-standing Norwalk business. And we quoted from their healthy choices and well-being through easy access to physical activity, healthy food, and medical care. And we cite to those sections specifically page 40 and page 118 in our narrative. Mr. Mason is here if you have any questions about the operation. And with that, our whole team is happy to take your questions.
My first question, and it became obvious to me as you're making your presentation and requesting all these variances, is that if you were to do only one paddle court, you would not require any variances because it would take up far less space on the site. Has that been considered at all?
Yes, it had been. Charlie, would you like to speak to that question?
Well, I would say that the going in
Charlie Mason for the record. He's the operator of Intensity.
Hi. I mean, Jackie, as you just presented, our original game plan here was to build 3 paddle courts, which is a sort of a normal size for a paddle club. 2 is considered a sort of a minimum, really, to operate a paddle club. So hence, that's where we are today.
Well, it seems to me that you might be, trying to push this too far, in that there is a reasonable solution without asking for variances, and that's something that our commission looks at.
Mr. Levy, if I may, David Wright from Paragon, we're the owner of the property and work with Charlie Mason, obviously, on Intensity. I don't know if it was made clear, really quite specifically, but 3 is sort of the minimum desirable.
I heard you.
We worked really hard to try to get 3, and we figured out we couldn't. 2, that is doable and it makes sense. And at 1, it's not going to happen because it doesn't make any sense. Because it doesn't make any sense. I'm just explaining. Charlie can chime in, but for 1 paddle court, it doesn't make sense economically. That's the bottom line.
Okay, you've just sealed it for me. You cannot make an argument that you're seeking relief because of money. And that's what you've just stated to me and this commission. I'll ask my other board members to weigh in.
No, it's not a matter of money. It's a matter of usage. Charlie, you can chime in. But Charlie, you can chime in. It's a matter of the membership.
It is, yeah. You're trying to create a social environment. You're trying to create a club that people will want to go to and to play at.
That's very nice.
And then to have 1 court in the back of Intensity, I just don't think would create the sort of environment that where people would really want to go to. And I think, I don't think that we would want to risk building something that people wouldn't want to go to. What I would say is that, the reason that we are interested in going to paddle is because the community is crying out for it. I mean, this is, we are following our customers who historically have played tennis with us, who have played squash with us. They have this year all voted with their feet. They are all playing paddle. They want paddle. You can't get a paddle court in the local area for love nor money. So
elsewhere to build the paddle courts.
I mean, we don't have another option.
You're putting 10 pounds in a 5-pound bag here.
Well, we're talking to you a little bit about the operation and the desire for it, certainly, but the property itself, regardless of what the use was, we're being open and honest about a way for a business to certainly to survive during COVID, and to also provide healthy outdoor activity for its membership. And all of those things, I don't think anyone would dispute are positive goals for this is business or Norwalk. But I think you'd agree with that. But I think also when we take it back and we look at the property, we look to what the hardship, and whether it was a paddle or whether it was an improvement to the building, the reasonable use of this property goes to, or the future use of this property goes to the fact that it has a very interesting history, that the zoning to the west of it, no one's quite sure why it ended up that way. If that commercial property was retained all in the B2 zone, we would not be here for some of these variances, for lion's share of them. And but also the way it was developed, we were in light industrial, and so the future and the existing use in the future of this is challenged in more ways than one which I've described. So we do think that there is a unique hardship associated with wanting to use the rear of the property, that when this was built, if paddle courts had gone in there, they would have been permitted, because both the coverage and the setbacks were not what they are today. And certainly we know that changes of zones over time and changes to regulations are standards for hardship.
So I'd like to
So I think that's
respond.
just what we were trying
Can
to
you?
communicate.
Hey, Lee, can you hear me?
Yes, I can.
You asked a question from fellow board members. It was not my interpretation that the owner of the property was putting forward putting forward a single court as the economic hardship. I didn't read it that way. I just read it as I'm saying we would not find it feasible to proceed.
Okay.
With one. So I think their hardship is elsewhere.
I don't want to step on Keith. Do you have anything further before I ask a question?
No, I don't, Andy. That was all.
Thank you, Keith.
Sometimes I realize that I muted myself to avoid the ambient noise here. There are these odd-shaped boundaries near you, and you would wonder why you couldn't approach those property owners and try to buy some of the not real usable property that's adjoining you. It doesn't make sense to just ignore the zoning regulations and not make other attempts to get this done and done right. Right now, I think I agree with Lee that you're trying to force an awful lot into a small area, and you're just a little bit outside of what is reasonable. I would think that you should be able to get some property from that long strip that's right adjacent to you. But have you already tried to talk to those property owners and obtain that property?
I don't want to speak for Mr. Wright, but I don't think that we have, but it still does not necessarily, we still have a B zone, we still have B zone there, so I'm not sure. No, I don't know that we have.
Well, I mean, we looked at, it's not just that strip of land by any means, it's an entire property that's split zone, correct, Jackie?
Yes, it's not even split zone. It's,
yeah, I mean,
that strip was left in the B zone.
Right. So you're talking about purchasing an entire commercial property with a building on it, and I don't even, you know.
I don't know. Well, it looks to me, I have no idea if that is even feasible for that property from a development standpoint, if that creates non-conformities for it to cut the tail off.
Right. So
that hasn't been explored. But the way I'm looking at the property, I'm looking at the size of that building that's on it, and I don't know my instinct is they probably require every square foot to maintain its own status.
Do you have a map of buildings on the adjoining properties?
A map of which adjoining properties to the west and south?
Yes.
Jason, I don't know if this map goes out. I do have one here in my possession that goes out a little bit further. I'm not sure if these photos do, but we can certainly get you one. We'd like to continue this tonight because we're meeting with our neighbors next week. So certainly we can provide you with that.
Okay, I have another question then. You're proposing an 8-foot high board fence. I would suggest doing something that can't be destroyed by cars and snowplows. And certainly a board fence will not survive very long, and you're going to be making constant repairs to it.
We'd be happy to look at alternatives and present them to you.
Thank you.
Hey, Mr. Chairman, quick question for you. Just like thinking about where they are in the development process here and meeting with the neighbors. Let's say that we were all in agreement that we want to do something like this. I know that we're not at this point, but like, let's just say that we are. Is it correct to say that we are unlikely to approve it today without getting feedback from the neighbors? Or would we be, I'm just wondering if we should continue this conversation knowing that we still need feedback from the neighbors before this is decided. I'm just wondering on what your perspective is. Lee, that was for you, in case you're wondering.
Lee?
Maybe he took a quick break. Who knows?
I
Maybe
will
if-
say, Mr. Basher, it is helpful to the applicant knowing that we did start out saying that we intended to continue to have any questions or concerns that are on your minds now as commissioners, because that allows us to address those in the interim till the next meeting. So we do appreciate your insight now.
Well, some of the difficulties I'm having with accepting that you should be allowed to have the variances has to do with your presentation of the property adjoining not being impacted adversely because of what they are. I don't think that's your decision to be making. I would be looking to somehow expand the property. I would look to use other property. I would imagine you could purchase property, or that you could find some way to have the property not developed and made available to you for a smaller sum. But right now, I just not seeing it. It just seems like you're probably right. You could probably use 3, but you can't fit 3 in there. By the way, when it comes to paddle tennis courts, Rowayton, where I live, we do have them. They have their ups and downs. There's a period we went through, there wasn't a lot of them. Right now there is. And Oak Hills had paddle tennis courts. I don't know if they've been rebuilt, but they fell into disarray and were torn down. I don't know if they've been built back.
I was not aware if they've been built back. My only awareness was that there are some in Rowayton, and that's the only location. But certainly when we look at the law and variances, and I think that you make good points about what are your alternatives and what's around you, it is important to look around us, because the law of variances require that there is something unique to this property that is different from other properties. And we think we've demonstrated that. Certainly the size, the shape, and the fact that it was in light industrial at some point, and that and now is a light industrially developed property functioning in a B2 world, and the unique challenge of the property that is next door to it. It's always available to any applicant to go out and purchase other property, but that's not when we look at the 4 corners of a property and we look to the hardship of the unique characteristics of the property and the hardship of the applicant, we can look to other properties that might be, or the law, I should say, doesn't typically say that the other options lie in the fact that they can buy other properties. The law is clear that we are restricted to looking into the 4 corners of the property and how it's unique. And although we are looking to do a particular project for the reasons we've articulated, it's really just this property in general. There's nothing that there's nothing we could do here. We would need coverage variances or area variances simply because of the way that the pavement's laid out, the way other properties and easements have been laid out over time. You can see where they're interconnected in and around the car wash property. So there are multiple development challenges for this building. Now, if this also, we look at, from an economic standpoint, but what could go in here? I mean, under our retail conditions, this is an extremely large building for a retail zone, and it's very cavernous inside. It was designed to be a fitness facility, and if another fitness facility did not come in, would it be relet? Our industry experts and Mr. Wright say that it would not necessarily be the most desirable or a viable building. So maintaining it as a fitness facility and with an owner that has has run a very, very successful program for so many years and still has such a devout following in this community. I don't even want to say a repurposing or for its own needs, but that's really what it is. It's evolving for the needs in the community with an existing business that knows what those needs are, is what we think is a very desirable thing. And so we look to this property. What can we do to keep this to keep this property going? And certainly we look to that rear portion for that opportunity. But as we showed you earlier, whether they are courts or whether it's any other type of appendage that this building may demonstrate that it needs, it's impossible to do without your help and without relief. And that's due to the constraints of the property itself, not just the desire of the property owner.
Jackie, could I just pick back up again, just on that question about, is it possible to have one court, to operate one court? And I'm just sort of thinking back to, at one stage, Intensity had a single tennis court. If you look at the sort of the bizarre shape of the building there, you can see the one to the north, that used to be just, one tennis court by itself. The other buildings contain 2 tennis courts and 4 tennis courts. And what we found when that northerly building was a single tennis court was that nobody wanted to play on it. Okay, they called it Siberia. You're sending me to Siberia if I go out there. It's a strange dynamic, but the reality is that people want to play on a court next to other people. They want that sort of social context for what they're doing. And that's really a more significant factor in this than anything about money or anything like that. If this was going to be successful, we'd have to have at least 2 paddle courts to make it a success.
Can I ask how many paddle tennis courts you could put in Siberia?
Well, what is Siberia? That northern building there now is 4 squash courts. Okay, so we converted it to squash courts, and it has been incredibly successful as 4 squash courts, because again, it's the sociability, the fact that people are playing with other people and seeing other people playing.
And Charlie, you'll probably get to this, but to note, paddle is an outdoor sport, and it's primarily really a winter sport, but certainly a cold. I mean, Charlie, isn't it primarily a winter sport?
It is, yes.
And that's why, it's not an indoor sport. It's something kind of special. And when we discussed possibly doing this, I think it's a good thing for the city. There's 4,000 people that already joined Intensity. It's an outdoor thing. I know that COVID will go away, but right now having outdoor activities that anybody from toddlers to seniors can enjoy outdoors year round is just a good thing for the city. So that's why, I just wanted to point out it's not really an indoor situation. It's an outdoor sport.
Yeah,
just a couple of comments on paddle courts in general. I played paddle for years. I can attest that one paddle court is pretty useless, meaning that there's only a handful of leagues that actually run here in Fairfield County, and in order to even be a part of those with the other 20 or so clubs, you need to have a minimum 2 courts. So like having one court doesn't give that opportunity to join those leagues. And in terms of like access to courts, yeah, I remember when they had paddle courts at Oak Hills. I mean, that was years ago, and it didn't really have the same uptick as it has now. But I'm also a member down the Row-8, and you can't get a court. So like technically there are no public available courts in Fairfield County at all whatsoever. In order to play at Row-8, you have to be a Row-8 resident and you have to join. The other secondary court that is partially public is a Wilton YMCA. So there's been a lot of interest in general just trying to get more paddle courts, because in Fairfield County in general for public access, and this is probably as close as you're going to get to it, but without 2 courts, you can't participate in like all the different leagues that happen. So I don't know, just my perspective as a paddle player.
Thank you for that context.
Thank you.
Lee, are you back with us? All right, I don't think he took a break. I think he got dropped.
He's here.
I'm back.
No.
Are you back?
Yes, I've been listening for the last 5 or 6 minutes. I did not realize I was muted.
That happens.
Yes.
Do you
Any
wanna add a
other
little guidance?
any other questions or comments from the board?
I will thank you for your time tonight and for your agreement to continue this meeting and to taking the time to give us your feedback. If you do have additional questions or things you would like to see from us, so we will consider a lot of the things we heard tonight and try to respond well in advance of our next meeting. But if there's anything you can communicate to staff that you'd like to see from us in addition, we would be happy to provide that to staff before the next meeting as well. And we will report back after our meeting with our neighbors.
Thank you very much. We appreciate your consideration.
Thank you very much.
Thank you.
And with that, I will
Can we
close.
continue it, Mr. Chairman? Can we continue it to a
Wants
date?
it open?
Yes, we will continue this. I will
We
not
had some-
close the item.
We did have some
continue it
members of
next
the public who wanted to speak.
month. Okay,
You have Stuart, if you just say your name and.
I'm unmuted.
go ahead and please speak.
Okay, my name is Stuart Garelick. I live at, and I'm a member of the Board of Directors of Norwalk Condominium. We were notified of this appeal. I was presented with all the maps that you were looking at today. And within our board, we had many questions that have not yet been answered. We presented this to our attorney, whose name is pronounced Pillacy, and he said he thought that the appeal really lacked any hardship claim at all. And if a business that's been thriving for all these years is a hardship, I'd be happy to take it off their hands. One big question that I don't know how to resolve, I also wanted to see a bigger map with our condominiums on there, but this whole tortuous thin piece of property seems to me that it follows the course of a stream that passes behind and between the properties. And to the best of my knowledge, I know a good part of that stream belongs to Norwalk Condominium, and for which we gave an easement to the city so they could enter drainage pipes into it. So I also question whether the part that Attorney Kaufman is referring to is somehow tied in with the pumping station. I was looking forward to walking the property and that got canceled. So I don't know how to answer these questions, but I don't know if that's at all valid.
Well, it's certainly valid, and it may be something that can be addressed in the continuation of this hearing next month.
Okay, our questions primarily from the residents concern effects of lighting and the noise influencing our residences. And I don't think those questions have been added. In your previous discussion, you spent a good time on LED lighting that doesn't disperse into neighboring areas
Well,
as much.
if
This
you
wasn't part of-
could put the questions down and send them to our staff person, Tammy Maldonado, we would certainly consider them and invite you to come back to the meeting next month.
Okay.
Mr. Chairman and Mr. Gerlich, I will say that I have had a discussion with the chairman of the board of directors and did discuss all the things that Mr. Gerlich just raised. We did provide him with some information relative to their drainage questions. We've spoken with staff about those as well and have a plan for those. We see no impact based on that, but we will provide materials back into the record to confirm all of those things. But I did speak with Howard, your
Yes, President.
your chair, and also with Mr. Pelsey, and we will be meeting with you next week. He's supposed to get back to me with dates that you are all available, and we'll be happy to answer any of your questions and provide you with documentation to your satisfaction.
I would just like to say one other thing. The maps that you presented to us presented the maps of alternate locations without any indication that they were impossible for you to do. I thought there were other alternate locations under consideration, and these obviously would not be affecting our residences at all in those other locations.
I provided that as a courtesy to Howard, so that he would have a sneak preview, as you all would, of our presentation. And so without the context to those, I understand your confusion, but we'll take this up privately. I don't want to take up the board's time. We're happy to meet with you next week. And if you get Mr. Pelsey a list of your questions, I'll ensure that they're answered when we meet, if not before.
Did the board receive a copy of the letter from Attorney Pelsey?
He did not, because your attorney agreed that if we continued this hearing, he would not send that until we met, because we did not have an opportunity to speak.
Okay, thank you.
I have one last quick question or a distinction that would help us in our minutes. I understood from the pictures shown in the discussion that we're talking about platform tennis, not paddle tennis. Is that correct?
Yeah, it's same thing. Yeah.
Are they now the same thing? I know they started out as different.
Paddleball is played on platform courts.
Okay, thank you.
Thank you, Keith.
My pleasure.
And we will continue this item until our March meeting.
What date is that, Mr. Levy?
I honestly don't know, but
March 18th.
Thank you very much. March 18th. Okay, we look forward to seeing you on March 18th.
Thank you.
Thank you. Be well.
Mr. Secretary, would you read the next item on the agenda?
Yeah. 21-02-1802, Larissa and Buell Duncan. Variance for height peak 39 foot, required 40 foot proposed, and midpoint 31 foot, required 31.8 proposed. In B residence zone, the property is located at 6 Golden Court, District 6, Block 36, Lot 75. The applicant seeks variance of regulation for height to construct an addition over an existing footprint, existing open garage. Background: the original home was built in 1932. It's situated on a lot that is non-conforming with an area of approximately 3,834 square feet. A variance was granted for setback from street line and side yard in 1953 to enlarge the home and add a one-car attached garage. Since then, the house was also elevated and other additions and alterations were made with permits. Staff analysis and findings: the proposal for addition over existing footprint to match existing roof height is a moderate request. The hardship would be the undersized lot and abutting coastal waters.
Okay, thank you, Mr. Secretary. Will the representative for the applicant please step forward and identify themselves?
Good evening. I'm hoping that you can hear me. I can see myself, so I know the video is working. My name is Robert Maslin. I'm an attorney, and I represent the property owners and applicants, Teresa and Buell Duncan. They are here. I think you call them attendees. They're not on the panel member list. On the panel member list with me are Bob Cardello and Ed Napierkowski, who are the architects on this project. And as I mentioned, they're on the panel, so they'll be able to jump in if we need them to answer any questions or if they have anything that I don't have available for this screen sharing. I have a couple of things. First, the proof of mailings were submitted to the extent we have them. I submitted them electronically. I'm waiting for one of the two green cards to come back. And I have a PowerPoint that I've sent in electronically as well, and that we'll go over in a minute. And I've offered to, and Tabby accepted my offer to print out a couple of copies of the PowerPoint and send them in for the file. And if that's okay, Mr. Chairman, I'll proceed with the PowerPoint.
Please go right
All
ahead.
right, and I have to figure out how to share the screen here. So I'm not sure how we do that. Let's see. Let's try that. Okay. Oh, here we go. I'm sorry, it's taken. I have like a bunch of screens here. Okay, you can see the slide there?
Yeah, we see it.
Yes.
All right, great. Okay, now I have to get my control slide up. Okay, here we go. All right, where is it? Oh, here we go. Okay. All right. This property is located on this little peninsula that sticks out from Crescent Beach. Crescent Beach is over here. This photograph shows the house. The house is right in the middle. Let's see if I can, okay, here we are. It's in the middle of this photograph. Right now, it's basically a 2.5-story basic 2.5-story house. As the staff memo explained, this property was built initially in the 1930s, and in the 1950s, the house was built over or added onto over the previously existing house, and then a garage was added, and that's an open garage. And sometime between 1981 and 2013, the building was lifted so that the first floor elevation is now 12.7, which up until 2013 actually complied with the flood regulations, but the 2013 FEMA map changed that. The peak of the highest peak now is over the 39-foot maximum. It's at 40 feet, and we need the variance for that. And along with that is about a 1-foot variance for the midpoint measurement. So the overview is we're proposing a new second floor and attic addition above the northern portion of the existing first floor, and that's over the existing open garage. The roof peak is going to match the existing peak, so we're not going any higher than the main roof of the existing house. Install flood compliant breakaway walls around the existing open garage, which would allow that 1-car garage to be closed in, mostly for security and heating and all of that goes along with it. There are a couple of HVAC units alongside the northern wall. We're going to elevate those to 16 to comply with the flood elevation requirement. And new steps at the northwest corner of the garage to transition from the at-grade along this north end of the house to a patio and to the rear entrance. The total addition is 331 square feet. I wanted to make that point for the record because that keeps us under the 1,000-foot trigger for a coastal site plan application. No changes to the existing non-conforming, or technically not non-conforming, because the existing setbacks are by variance. And all of the proposed addition work will be above elevation 16. And that all complies with FEMA regulations and recommendations. We just went through the history. This.
Can I get you to take a quick pause, Bob?
Oh, sure. Sure. Who's that, Andy?
I guess this is Andy. I guess what you're saying is that you're raising the building again?
No.
No?
We're adding on top of the existing building to put additional space on the attic level and square off a couple of corners on the second floor.
All right. So it's all new from the second floor up?
No. Second
All right.
floor.
I'm confused now.
Okay. All right. I'll show you in the plans in a second, but the second floor will remain almost the same. There's a couple of little corners to one of the rooms that I'll show you will be squared off, and that's just a few square feet.
Yeah, the reason I was asking you, Bob, the reason I was asking you that is I wondered if the roof stayed as it is. In other words, you're jacking the roof up.
No,
Because
we're
I was
not
wondering
jacking.
about the slope of the roof, but we'll get to that later.
I'll show you. I'll show you. But the main roof will remain at the same height and the same slope, but the third level addition is going to come out over the garage, and that part of the roof will be raised up to match the existing height of the existing roof. Okay. You'll see in the illustrations. This 1981, the previous owner got permits to raise the house and rebuild the foundation in 1981. Apparently, it was never completed with a CO, and that CO was issued in 2013. But right now, the current survey does show that the first floor elevation was increased to what prior to 2013 was conforming. The lot area is undersized, as mentioned, and I'll give you a look at the survey. This is a little bit of a close-up. These setbacks are on variances already, but this footprint will not change. Across this little 10-foot access right-of-way from this property is Long Island Sound, and there's also Long Island Sound coming up in the back, and there's a little stairway that goes right down to the water in the back. It's kind of neat. These are the existing elevations. You can see over the garage, the roof peak is lower than the higher peak on the left side of the house. And going around the house, this is the left side. If you look closely, you'll see some faint lines in here. These are the peaks and the roof profile on the side of the house, on the right side of the house behind this panel. That's why they're depicted the way they are. The rear looks like this. And
can you read some numbers? Can you read some of those top level numbers? Because I can on that.
Oh, what, over here?
Yeah, on either one of them, the very highest numbers that you're showing for the peaks of the roof. Could you give those numbers?
Yes, this is 40 feet.
Okay.
Over here. And the number to the midpoint is 31.
All right, so it's existing 40 feet right now.
Yes.
All right.
Yes. Yep. And existing 31. Or actually, I think it's 31.8. Okay, this is the north side elevation. You'll see these openings in the existing garage, and over here are HVAC units. Oh, I guess you can't see that. I'm trying to deal with two screens here. HVAC units here, and you got the other three openings alongside are there as well. Okay, proposed elevations. Now you see The existing roof is over here. And what we're doing is just extending the peak over in this direction and filling this area in here. So we're not going any higher than the existing. And we're not going any higher with respect to the midpoint. These numbers over here are the same as they are on the existing. And going around left side, you'll see these faint numbers now show the proposed roof, and the peak at the top here is right at the peak of the existing roof. Okay, same thing with these numbers here. The two you really are concerned with, I believe, are the peak, which is the same, and the midpoint, which is also the same. On the right side of the house, you'll see these openings are now filled in with breakaway walls because this house is in the V zone and that's what's required. And the HVAC units are going to be raised up to here to the minimum elevation required under the flood regulations. Now let me go over to.
Well, Bob, make sure you tell us what that number is before we're done.
40 for the peak.
No, the raising of the bottom floor.
Oh, 16.
FEMA.
16.
Okay.
Okay, this is the existing roof. And this is the area that we're talking about right over here. This is the lower portion above the garage. And this is the proposed. You can see how this fills in with new roof panel. I thought I have the floor plans here. They're in the application, but the architects are able to prepare these perspectives that give you a sense side by side of the existing versus the proposed. And so you see if this works. Yep, it does. So this is the existing roof. And on the right side, you have the proposed roof. And that illustrates quite clearly what the change is. Adding a few windows here, a little window up in the upper level. Another perspective, a little bit more of an overhead, but existing, you have the lower roof above the garage and it gets filled in. The next one, and this is a view of the rear. This area down here is water on both of these. You can see, if you look closely, there's steps going down into the water here. And again, this is the same area that we've been talking about over on the left side of the existing perspective, and it gets filled in here. And as you can see, we're basically raising the profile and adding, it looks like we're adding some area underneath. So that is that perspective. And then just another one from the rear of the left side of the house, I guess. And you can see existing, proposed over here. I have floor plans if you want me to go through them, but in a nutshell, I know I have 6 minutes left. The attic floor area at the end of all of this will be 889 square feet. That's shown on the proposed attic floor plan. The second floor finished grade will be 1,481. So that works out to exactly 60%, which means the attic level counts as a half story. So we have the variances that we're looking for are 40 in lieu of 39 for the peak and 31.8 in lieu of 31 for the midpoint. The HVAC units are going up to 16, and I believe those are the numbers that you need. If you'd like, I can go through the floor plans, but I thought I would give you 5 minutes to ask me questions
Well,
I'm
the
not sure.
one
Hear from the public.
thing I'm trying to pull from your presentation is that you have limited the the additional building area and construction cost, so you don't run into the problem of having to raise the entire body of the house to the required FEMA regulation. Is
Correct.
that correct?
You're talking about the 50% rule.
Yeah.
Yes, that's absolutely.
Okay.
And if I just might make one other comment, this is a kind of an unusual situation. If this were just a basic non-conforming building with respect to setbacks, if it weren't for the building height being essentially 1 foot and 8/10 of a foot over what's allowed, we wouldn't be here, because in Norwalk, under the regulations, you're allowed to build up from an existing non-conforming setback. So
yeah, I'm very well aware of
adjustment-
that. And, I personally feel the request for the variance is necessary, given, flood elevation requirements. I too have had a house that I've had to raise twice in the last 25 years with the change of the FEMA regulations. You might be optimistic on this. Hopefully you won't have to raise the house for, a second time.
Hopefully. My clients bought this last October, so they didn't raise it the first time. But
Well,
you're absolutely right.
I'm speaking theoretically that the house has been previously elevated.
Yes.
And hopefully they won't have to elevate it again under their ownership or a future ownership.
Understood. I agree with that.
Thank you.
Any other
board
questions,
members
thoughts?
with questions?
No, mine were answered.
No questions from me.
No, I think it's very clear.
Thank you. Tammy's memo talks about hardship. I think that's pretty straightforward. I would also add to that this lot was created before the minimum lot regulation made it non-conforming. The original house was on a setback. The ZBA obviously found a hardship, albeit 1953. This is just one of those tough properties where, in order to make a reasonable use of it, given where it is and the values down there, this is a very minor adjustment, it seems, and we hope you'd find the same hardships with respect
Okay,
to
I will ask if,
all of that. And that's it. Thank you very much.
okay, I will ask if anyone else tuned in wishes to speak in favor of this application.
Please raise your hand if you'd like to speak. And we have one person, Tim Gaylord.
Hello, can you hear me okay?
Yes.
Yes, please identify yourself.
Hi, my name is Tim Gaylord. I actually live on 23 South Beach Drive. My mother actually lives right next door. I guess my only question is about the HVAC on her side of the property. Is it possible to put it on the other side between the two houses where it's not as visible? Because she'll be looking directly into the side of the HVAC at 16 feet.
Mr. Maslin, you care to respond to that?
Sure. Well, the other side of the house, there's virtually no room. I have the second survey, which is actually a little bit of a blow up. You can see the setback is smaller. The house next door is very close. If we go back to the photograph here, you'll see that this wall is not moving, it's going up a bit.
Okay.
The existing HVAC units are right here. There's nothing blocking them heading off in this direction, and there's yard here. So there's no house. It
Yeah.
seems this is probably the best place for it. I don't see where it's going to create any more noise than the existing HVAC units. And
I don't think it's not so much a noise thing as it is aesthetic. Would you mind going back to your renderings for 1 second?
Sure.
Can you show me where they'd be here on this wall facing north?
Let me see if there's a better rendering to show that. Probably up on this side of the wall,
Okay.
right over here.
What is the distance between the two houses?
Oh,
Between my mother's house and their house,
Yes.
there's a fair amount of space. There's a yard there. I mean, they're not that close. It's my question is only because the house on the opposite side, they wouldn't look at it at all. I just wasn't sure how much space there was, if they could put it between where it's not visible at all. I guess that was my inquiry.
Could we recommend
You see?
some landscaping?
We
Yeah,
could.
that's possible. That's possible. I was
We
just
could.
curious if it was an option at all, but I understand.
Landscaping is always a possibility.
Yeah.
You know, there's not much here now. There is a hedgerow that's shown in the plan. I mean, this unit here is, let me see if I can blow this up. This is the existing unit right here.
So it'd be pretty much above.
It would be
the
directly
bottom of it
above
would be at the top. It would just be stacked on top of that pretty much.
Well, it would be up a little higher.
Even higher, okay.
This would be retaken and just moved up.
Okay.
And
Yeah, I can see on the side with the toppers on to the right of them, there is no, I see the fence there. That's very tight.
Do you know if she hears the units as where they are when they're running?
I don't think so. I mean, in the summer she does with the windows
Is
open,
it-
and because her patio is right there, so it is.
Yeah.
You know, if she sits outside, I mean, it's right on top of them. So on top of her.
Are you, is the concern the way it looks or the way it sounds?
Well, in the summer months, it would be the noise, but that comes with HVAC. They have it on the other side as well too. But also just because aesthetically on the top, if it's just I don't know how big they are these days. If it's a gigantic generator type HVAC, that's
No, I don't.
right there, because she'd be looking at it. If in the summer, it's it's there. It's
Yeah,
apparent.
if they're new ones, they're going to be very, very quiet.
Okay.
That I know.
Well, if
They just
we,
had
as
one put
part
in a
of
couple of-
our approval, can recommend or require screening or landscaping to cut the noise and the view of the unit, we would certainly be amenable to that as part of our process.
That's fine. That'll be fine.
You would
Okay.
accept that, Attorney Maslin?
Thank you, everyone. Thank you for your time.
Thank you.
Thank you very much.
Somebody mentioned my name.
Yeah, Andy, you would accept the proposal made by Lee?
On
I
the
think he did.
landscaping? On the screening?
Talking
Yeah.
about putting some sort of buffer up around the machine so that they're not so visible or noisy.
Well, sound, I think, is not going to be an issue because they're all very quiet now. Screening is a no-brainer. You know, that's a matter of putting up something, and if that's what we have to do to get a variance, at the risk of having my clients yell at me who are not sitting here so I can ask them like I normally would during a hearing.
Well, we're waiting. This is asked for a lot, and generally people say, "You bet."
Oh, I know. I just kind of said that. And I also said, I don't have the clients right here, so I can ask them directly, but I'm sure if you I don't see a problem.
Okay.
I just,
Okay,
you know, maybe I'm talking too much. The message is, sure,
Okay.
we'll do that.
thank you. Are there any other lost my train of thought.
Members of the public who would like to.
Thank you.
Hi. Excuse me, gentlemen, this is Buell Duncan, the owner. I was trying to figure out how to get off mute. We're absolutely happy to try to figure this out, no question. So, and I'm sure we can. The Gaylords are wonderful neighbors, and
Well, that's very good to hear, and we'll make a recommendation as part of our
process.
Hopefully, of our process. Thank you, Andy.
Thank you.
Anyone else wish to speak in favor of this application? Does anyone wish to speak in opposition of this application? Mr. Maslin, you care to add a final comment to this?
Yes, you heard from the owner, so there won't be a problem with the screening and the noise. And I think we've covered everything in our initial presentation. Thank you, and I want to thank Tammy for her help in moving this along.
Thank you very much.
We had a couple of false starts there because of meeting problems and forums, and whatever.
Well,
we finally made it here, so thank you very much.
Thank you. Board members, it is.
Mr. Chairman, I move that we extend for 15 minutes so that we can hear the next applicant.
I was going to make the same recommendation and ask the board's approval. If anyone is in opposition on the board to extending our meeting 15 minutes, please signify. Hearing no objections, Mr. Secretary, would you please read the next item on the agenda?
21021803, Eversource / City of Norwalk WPCA. Variance of the required 2-story minimum for replacement pump station in business number 1 zone, property located at 473 Connecticut Avenue, District 5, Block 73A, Lot 11. Request: applicant seeks variance of minimum number of stories for proposed 1-story replacement pump station. In background, the proposal for replacement pump station is being made to relocate the pump station to a preferred location on the parcel. And though it doesn't say so here because of flood reasons. Staff analysis and findings. The 2-story minimum requirement in this zone was intended to encourage efficient use of the land by promoting residential and office space above the retail uses that dominate Route 1. Since the proposed building is a sewage pump station, the intent to require 2 stories would seem unnecessary. The nature of the use, the proximity to high tension wires, and the Keeler Brook, which is a waterway, are all hardships for this proposal. I'm done.
Okay, will the applicant please come forward and identify themselves?
Good evening. My name is Ralph Kolb. I'm staff to the Norwalk Water Pollution Control Authority. Also on the call tonight is my consultant, Dennis DeVere from Wright Pierce, and also Chief Carr from DPW. So the Keeler Brook Pump Station, where it sits currently, is on the west side of the Keeler Brook in an Eversource parcel. The city has an easement. We're across from Chick-fil-A on the south side. The current pump station is basically from grade down to about the low grade. The existing station exists. So everything is, besides a couple of hatches and basically a roof over where the generator is below grade, everything is below ground. The problem with the current location footprint, we're in the FEMA floodway and also the 100-year flood zone. So the problem with the floodway is to reconstruct or move components, specifically electrical and everything above the 100-year floodplain, in the existing location, FEMA will not allow because of the floodway. We have to move it out of the floodway. So we worked with Eversource about a year now. It's been going on because on that property is their towers with high tension power lines. So they have a lot of setback requirements because the wires will swing in the wind and the stretch component of the wires as well. So we, part of the application is we submit an A2 survey of the current easement and then the proposed location, along with some 2 engineering drawings that show the one-story new building. What we're doing, the new location will one will provide dependable pumping for the businesses on Connecticut Avenue for sewage, and we will be out of the floodway and above the 100 and 500-year flood zones. Currently, if the station gets inundated with the Killer Brook, if it overflows, we can't get to the station and we end up having sewage going into businesses or going into the environment. So working with the state, Connecticut DEP, it's in everybody's best interest to relocate the pump station. And like I said, because of all the setback requirements Eversource has with the high tension power lines and the towers, there really isn't a big footprint to move the station any long distance. In addition, we have underground pipes, gravity sewer mains, interceptors that flow sewage from the surrounding area to this pump station. So because everything flows by gravity, again, relocating the station has to be within a short distance of the existing footprint. So the footprint we found meets our requirements, working with Eversource meets their requirements, but because of the hardship with the high tension power lines, we can't even have a peak roof. It's a flat roof that's proposed on the one-story building.
Okay. Any board members with questions on this application?
No, I'm familiar with it. Thanks.
Anybody else?
No questions.
Okay.
No.
Does any member of the public wish to speak in favor of this application?
There's nobody else left.
Okay, then nobody will be speaking against this application. So hearing that, I will close this item for tonight.
Thank you very much.
Okay. We will now go in reverse order to approve the items on our agenda as we are required to do. So item 21-0218-03, Eversource, City of Norwalk. Any discussion on this item for the board?
Yeah, about, I don't remember, 10 years ago, Keeler Brook flooded and we had floods all over town. And this became an obvious problem. So that pump station had to be moved. And I have no problem where they're moving it from too. That makes sense to me.
I too have no objections. I think this is the most reasonable location within the general area for the pumping station. And I don't think that it would be objectionable within the built environment.
I move that we allow the application as proposed. The variance.
I will second Andy's motion.
I'll vote in favor.
Aye.
Aye.
Aye. Any opposed? No, we're good.
Okay. This item is approved. Moving on.
21802, Teresa and Buell Duncan, that one?
Yes.
I didn't originally understand that the existing was 40 feet. That's why I was asking the dumb question.
Yeah. Well, I wasn't going to point anything out, Andy.
So once I understood it, then I got it.
Yeah, I think they've been very knowledgeable of the cost and size additions that might push them over the requirement to physically raise the house. And
Yeah.
that's an important element in their design. They're taking advantage of existing roof height. So any other comments?
I'd only say, I mean, I'm generally in supportive of it. I would just say the only thing about the, just the aesthetics or screening of whatever HVAC system they might have would be something that I think would be conditional approval.
I agree that screening with the use of evergreen trees is necessary to waylay any problems with the adjoining property owner. So Greg, if you'd like to make a motion.
I don't know. Did we want to specify evergreen trees or do we just want to say landscape?
Well, I wouldn't want to see a deciduous tree there. I
Also
guess
be
it
screened,
really
right?
doesn't
Couldn't they do something
matter.
else if they wanted to.
So we often have, I'm sorry to interrupt, but for when we, a requirement for rooftop mechanicals is that it's architecturally compatible screening. So sometimes it's like almost like a vinyl fencing or something like that. I don't know if that would be something.
I don't think I'd want to see vinyl.
Or not vinyl, but.
You wouldn't want a vinyl fence that high. And that's why I suggested evergreen screening to mask the sound and the visuals of the HVAC unit.
If we say landscaping, then it's up to the adults in the two houses to figure it out, and they'd probably be happier with that, I think.
Fine, let's,
I think there's a good relationship there that they will both do the right thing.
I agree.
Yeah.
I'll make a motion that we approve this application with the provision that between the two adjoining property owners, they work out a solution to the screening of the HVAC unit.
I'll second that.
All in favor?
All in favor?
Aye.
Aye.
Next,
Item passes unanimously. Next item, Andy?
next item is Sackett, Norwalk 490 LLC, who we have carried over.
Yes, that'll be carried over to next month.
Yeah, just as a brief discussion, I really didn't like the presentation and didn't like the justification, and I don't think they have a hardship.
I agree. I think that, the use of that piece of land for two platform tennis courts is inappropriate. I think it generates more parking. It generates more hard surface and is just not appropriate.
Yeah. I don't know if they can come up with a deal with any of their adjoining properties, but I would be trying to come up with something that would work this out a whole lot better than what they got going now.
They have a way of putting up a platform. And Greg, I know you're an advocate of working with two courts, but I don't think you can get you can get one court on the property without asking for a variance. And that's what we try to do. avoid granting variances. So if anybody else has a comment, we will carry this over to next month.
Yeah, the only thing is I would ask my fellow board members, our team, to take a look using Google Earth, looking down on the thing. And then look at the drawings that show you the lot lines and the oddities around them. I think that they should work on this quite a bit more and try to come up with a better solution.
Well, there may be a way to actually clean up the property lines that
There may be,
are
yeah.
beneficial to everyone.
Yeah. Unfortunately, you probably know more about changing the zone, that B zone property right next to it. Maybe a way of getting a slice of that and change it. I don't know about the waterway that supposedly exists there.
Well,
complex. I don't know.
Find more next month.
Yep.
Stay tuned.
Yes, as they say.
Okay, the last item on our agenda.
Let me ask Tammy, with this Norwalk property at the high school, the girls softball field, did we actually get notices that the people across the street from the ball field got asked via letter to be aware of the project and comment on it, or what? What happened?
Let's see here.
Because one of those folks is an activist, and I can't believe they would say nothing.
You know the name, Andy? Because I'm looking at the green cards.
No, I worked with them a long time ago on 2 or 3 school projects and don't remember, but they still live there. And for them to be quiet would be very unusual.
I'm very surprised that even properties that back up on the ball field did not respond.
So I've got, we don't have anybody left over from them, right? No. Oh no, Vanessa's here. Hey,
Yeah,
Vanessa.
yeah.
So
Yes.
I've got 5 return green cards. I'm not sure which parcel is the one across the street. Do you know?
I don't know which one now, but I'll tell that everything that was on the radios, we send green cards to. We notify everybody.
In addition, because it was continued, this was actually advertised because there was a typo. It was actually advertised in the hour of total of 5 separate days.
I mean, I think to me anyway, the issue is what's already been raised. Not many people get the newspaper, so it no longer serves the same function. We have had a lot of issues with mail in recent months. Whether there are as many as reported in the press or not, I don't know. But at any rate, I think it would be a smart move for the city, for the ZBA in particular, to find a way to make sure that people know, because I think there'd be quite a lot of negative publicity if people started, objected and said, we didn't know anything about it, and ZBA went ahead and approved it.
I mean, they'll have to go through the zoning commission too for their special permit.
No, that's true. I'm forgetting that. Yes.
I'm inclined to go along with the lighting, but I want to make sure that we rein it in. Because the way this was discussed, if you start playing the Title IX aspect of it, then we start inviting people to come and use the field, or they demand to use it if they're at the other high school.
Well, I'm totally dismissing that issue because that's not before us, the Title IX. I'm solely looking at.
It is in a way, because that's why they're saying that the lighting is necessary.
Well, I just, to me, I'm more concerned about the location of the lights and the cutoff on the lights.
Yeah, so am I.
I was very negative last month. I've taken a look at the information that they provided us, and there still is light spillage onto the rear yards of the residential properties, which concerns me. That's why I keep asking, were these people notified? And why hasn't anybody responded? So with no response, the only thing I can do is say, well, we gave everybody a chance. We've had 2 meetings. As Tammy said, it's been in the paper 5 times. You would think that somebody in the neighborhood would have picked up on it and talked to their neighbors. So I'm of the opinion that we should consider approving this and let planning and let zoning really consider of the other aspects of this.
Yeah, I think I'm aligned with you. I mean, for one, like I have kids in school, right? So like having more lit fields for kids to play on is important. I know that, when I think, and I also have all girls, right? So I also want to see more opportunities for the ladies of Norwalk sports who play softball to have the opportunity to play in the evening or at dusk. So it's like, it's the only field around. I think they said the only field in the state I'm surprised that that's the answer. But even if it's just Norwalk, that would be surprising to me as well. Like what I mean is that like I'm surprised it would be the only lit one in the state. But at the end of the day, it's like there are lit fields for majority of the men's sports. This is the only one that's exclusive to women. So I want to be more supportive of that. That's my perspective.
I also consider the fact that, and they stated to us that the lights are off during the summer at 9 p.m.
Yeah.
Yeah,
If it's anything like the system they have over at, I don't know if it's West Rocks or the other ones, like that's a serious system, right? Like those things go off regardless of what's happened there.
Yeah, well,
and like it's very, very controlled. So I feel like there's a good process on making sure that lights just aren't on 7 days a week until 9 o'clock.
Yeah, let's build that restriction into our approval.
Okay.
Yeah.
A good idea.
Someone make a motion?
Sure.
Yeah, I think Greg should make.
All right. Like that. You just made a motion of me making a motion. That's very well delegated. I will make a motion that we approve this and put I would say the same restrictions that they have on what is the other field on the other side of town? One by Norwalk High?
Nathan Hale.
Nathan Hale.
Yes, it's a Nathan Hale, the restriction.
I would say follow the same procedures that are over at Nathan Hale, which I believe is 9 o'clock shut off. That's what I would propose.
I will second that. All in favor?
Aye.
Aye.
Aye. Motion passes unanimously.
Great.
Thank you very much.
Good job, zoning board.
Thank you.
Yes, thank you very much. Stay safe.
Okay.
Take care.
Does
Thank you
anyone
very
have the
much.
energy to go through the minutes?
So we probably do, but I want to thank Greg for taking on that job of handling that last item.
Greg, pat
I
yourself
appreciate
on the
that.
back.
I really appreciate that. Thank you.
Was that a yes or a no?
On the minutes?
I'm
Yes.
good with it either way, whatever you want to do.
Okay. I actually had no objection to the minutes. I found no spelling errors in my name.
I swear you're the only guy that goes through there and does that.
I think Andy should make a motion to approve the minutes. That's my thought.
I move that we approve the minutes. Is there a second?
I'll second.
I'll second. Well, go ahead.
Go ahead, Keith.
I'll second, and on the condition that Lee, you stop adding an S to my name.
I'm sorry, Keith. You're right.
Tammy gets it right. Or
I
Michelle, I'm not
apologize
sure
to-
who. You don't need to.
I just know so many lions.
There are a lot more lions than there are lion.
Yes.
That's for
Okay, I'd like
sure.
to make a motion that we call it quits for tonight.
Second.
So moved. Yes.
Good night,
Thanks.
everyone.
Good night,
Thank you.
everyone.
Take care.
Safe and
Good
healthy.
night.
Yes.
Thank you,
bye-bye.
Tim.